Hey everyone, today I want to cover how to set up your duelist as an initiator. Every initiator is going to be different, but if you main that role, you should get comfortable with understanding the roles each initiator has and how those roles pair up with specific duelists to maximize successful entries. I'll show you which agents you should be picking based on the duelists that are picked in your ranked matches, and then I'll show you how the pros put that logic into action. Before we dive into Pro League play, I want to cover the conceptual playstyle of an initiator and how they relate to specific duelists. If you watched my video on how to entry as a duelist, you know that there are two main ways that a duelist can create space. One is through movement, and the other is through fragging potential. The duelists on your team that have higher fragging potential and less movement speed need agents that can get specific intel in order to take their fights more confidently. So you want to pick agents like Skye, Sova, or Fade. On the other side of this, the duelists that have higher movement abilities need initiators that can impair the enemy's abilities to take fights with that duelist. So you want to pick agents like KO, Breach, or Gecko. This is why you see agents like KO or Breach played with Neon so frequently in the latest meta, and why you see agents like Sova being used with duelists like ISO or Reyna. So let's look at the recent Energy vs Sentinels match to see how you can mix and match to maximize your duelist chances at successfully creating space for the team. In this round, I want you to focus on the Gecko and Breach and how they successfully set up the Raze to get onto site based off her movement.
None of really the aggressive re-clear strategies into B main either, but that's to be expected.
Yeah.
Heretics have been scrimming together since October. This team has not.
I think a lot of people will be questioning, when we're making comments like that, right? They're saying, well, this team has been together for a long time in the past. But the trouble is, Valorant evolves. It's a different game. It doesn't stay in the same state. We've even had a rapid switch up and change up with the patch recently. You might think that's in the favor of a team like NRG, but it's a lot of building back up to make sure the map.
So before we analyze how that round played out, I want you to notice the agent selection here with the initiators. You have Breach and you have Gecko. Gecko and Breach both have very high abilities to impair the enemy. With that impairment, you need to match them with a high movement agent like Raze or Neon or Jet in order to make sure that you can take advantage of when that enemy is impaired. So if Breach stuns somebody, you don't want to have somebody like an ISO who takes a little bit longer to get to where the enemy is stunned than somebody like Raze, who can satchel in very quickly and take advantage of the fact that an enemy is stunned on sight. So what they did here is they wanted Raze to actually get into back dice here, into the safest spot on the site. But in order to do that, they need to make sure that they prevent any enemies from getting to where Raze could potentially have to take a duel. So what they ended up doing was Breach stunning in Link here, aftershocking in default behind the dice, and then dizzying over the site. Again, what this is doing is preventing any enemy on site from taking a fair duel with Raze, so that Raze can take that space and then allow her team to kind of scale up alongside her. And I want you to think about this from the perspective of the duelist now for a second. So if you're an initiator and you're maybe a Breach and a Gecko, think about how much more difficult this would have been if you chose those agents for an ISO instead of a Raze, right? So you've now stunned this area, you've dizzied and flashed all of main or all of the site, and you've aftershocked this area now. It's much more difficult for an ISO to scale into this type of a setup because of the fact that he doesn't have high movement. He has to slowly walk his way into site, and by the time he gets onto site, this flash is gone, the stun effect is over, and the KO here isn't stunned anymore either. So they can quickly scale back up and take this gunfight with the ISO. That's why it's so important that when you're playing an initiator, that you choose one that allows you to pair up properly with your duelist. So if you have somebody like an ISO, like I said, or a Reyna, like I said, you want to make sure that you're giving them as much intel as possible. So a drone coming out of here so that the ISO can follow that drone and take the fight on the person that peeks the drone. So let's say you did drone out here and the drone is coming out and you're an ISO and you're pushing out into sight, and this Omen decides to peek it and decides to shoot the drone. Okay, well, that's an easy pick now because your ISO is going to be following that drone in and showing himself towards this angle. And once this Omen tries to shoot the drone, the ISO gets an easy trade. So I want to show you how your initiator selection impacts your duelist's ability to enter onto site effectively. Here I'm going to start with Neon, and then I'm going to show you how this works with ISO. So here I'm able to enter. That's fully clear for me, and now I'm ready to take advantage of that stun. I'm already there. And this is what it would look like if I chose Breach but had an ISO. So ISO can take back sight, but that stun went off way too early, and this ISO is not going to be able to take this fight fairly anymore because the stun is off. Here's what it would look like if I chose Sova as an initiator instead of Breach or Gecko as an initiator for ISO as a duelist. That ISO can effectively follow my drone into sight. As I get intel for him, he can follow it in, trade it out as people shoot the drone instead of me. I hope this was helpful for you all. If you plan on choosing an initiator, just make sure that you can play an agent that fits both play styles for your duelists. One that can effectively get intel for your duelists who have a higher fragging potential, and one that can effectively impair the enemy for your high movement agents. If you found this helpful, give the video a like or think about subscribing. And if you want to join a Discord community of people who enjoyed this kind of thinking in the game, you can join my Discord from the description. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.